Hello and welcome back. Today we're reacting to some more Kurzgesagt. This one just dropped, wanted to get some variety in before we focus on Gravity Falls. But this one hits very close to home. It is The Paradox of an Infinite Universe. This is always one that's just absolutely boggled my mind because, well, for a lot of reasons. But is the universe infinite? Does it have a border? Does it have an edge? If it does, what's beyond that? Now, for the sake of mental sanity, I think that it really depends on definitions a lot, right? So if the universe is all that is, then asking what's beyond it is kind of a null question, right? That question might not even really make sense, is kind of what I'm getting at. But is it infinite? I think there's two different types of infinities when it comes to that question. One is infinite as far as we're concerned or that we can prove, and the other would be infinite in actuality, like a physical infinite. I think it's not physically infinite, personally, my opinion. But in terms of concerning us, it is infinite because we could travel faster than we can travel, basically as fast as anything can travel, and never hit the end. So it's infinite as in we can never reach the end, ever, even if we had an infinite amount of time because of the expansion of the universe. So, yeah, it's infinite, but it's not, in my mind. So, yeah, I can't wait to hear about that. Let's go.
Is the universe
That
infinite?
is beautiful.
Does it have an edge? And if so, what would you see if you went there?
That's a good
Today,
question.
we know that the universe had a beginning 14 billion years ago and that it's been expanding ever since. But something that's expanding should also have an edge, right? Well, it sort
We
of
talked
does.
about that.
Information can't travel faster than light. That means that we can only see parts of the universe whose light has had time to reach us in the last 14 billion years.
We have to talk super quickly about how beautiful the art is. It always is with these guys. But this particular video, we're like 33 seconds in? Every single screenshot, every frame that they've shown could be a desktop background. Like, it's just absolutely beautiful.
When we look outwards, what we see is a sphere centered on us, the observable universe. But it gets a tad more complicated.
And the observable universe is predicted to be, by the theory of cosmic inflation, predicted to be like a sextillionth of the actual physical universe. And the physical universe grows every day, right? So, yeah, it's mind-bogglingly large.
Because the universe has been expanding, we know that the most faraway things whose light we can see are actually 45 billion light years from us right now.
Isn't that
So the
insane?
observable universe is a sphere with a radius of 45 billion light years. It contains around 200 billion galaxies, each with hundreds of billions of stars.
Oh,
So
that's a
for us,
beautiful
there
shot.
is an edge. We're looking at the past until there is just no past left.
Yep.
This edge is really more like an edge in time and, in a sense, meaningless. The real
Yeah,
universe is
it's not
for
an
sure
edge in
bigger
space.
than what we can see. But how much? There are two options. Either the universe is really big but finite, or it's truly infinite. A finite universe means that if you want to fill it with ice cream, you can do it. You need a lot of ice cream, but it is a finite amount.
Okay, yeah, I see what you guys are getting at. Absolutely. And I think that, not to drag it on too much, but I really do think that the universe is finite. I think that it has a finite number of particles in it, a finite amount of mass, and a finite amount of energy. I don't think that true infinity physically exists. I think infinity is a concept, and I think that infinity is a mathematical construct that we use in places where the quantity or the scale just simply is so big or so tiny, right? But so big in scale that it just simply doesn't make sense for us to actually go to those scales. It's sort of like if you were to say, I have one pizza here, okay? I got food on my mind. I'm hungry. But say I have one pizza and a single little tiny flake of crust falls off that pizza. You don't say, well, I have 0.99999999999% of a pizza here. You say, no, I have a pizza here, right? It's sort of like that same concept to there's a point where going as far as you can go in decimal places and in scale just doesn't matter anymore. So like, for instance, a singularity in the center of a black hole. Is it truly infinite mass? Infinite? No, it's not. It's not infinite. Is it truly infinitely small? No, it's not. Because in order to actually be infinitely mass, it would take infinite energy, which of course does not exist. So it's a construct that helps our math work and helps get us through these concepts, but is not reflected physically in the real world. That's my take on it anyway. So I'm going to go with it's finite.
But that leads to a weird problem. Such a universe should have an edge, a cosmic wall where space ends.
True.
And if there's an edge, there should be something outside that edge. But the universe by definition is all there is. So how could there be stuff outside all there is? Does the idea of something outside of everything even make sense? Except, of course, there is a physics hack. You can have a universe that has no border, but that still could be filled with a finite amount of ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
What if the universe is truly finite? Imagine an orange and a really tiny ant. The ant can only see a small piece of the skin, just as you can only see a small chunk of the universe.
I think I know where they're going here too. So they've predicted that it's possible that for the universe to exist in one of three layouts, if you will. One is it's a flat universe. Think of a sheet of paper, but a three-dimensional sheet of paper, if you will. But the fact is, in a 4D space, it's not curved, right? In that instance, there should be an edge, right? Because or it's truly infinite and just goes on forever in every direction. But it makes more sense that it is finite and has an edge. But if there's hyperbolic, then basically the universe is curved in an outward direction. Think opposite of a ball, right? And then the other way around, it's curved like a ball where it comes around itself. So if you traveled long enough in any three-dimensional direction, you would eventually end up back where you are. And we've done some experiments, and I don't know all the details on these, but I know I've read about them and I've heard about them, that have concluded that the universe is flat, or at least as close to flat as we can possibly measure, right? Within a very small margin of error. So it's not likely that if you travel in any one direction for an infinite amount of time that you would end up back where you are. It seems more like it's flat and it goes on in every direction without looping in any way, which is really interesting thought.
But if the ant starts walking, it will eventually walk around the whole orange and be back to its starting point.
And that's what they're getting at
here, right? So the skin of an orange is not infinite, but it doesn't have a border. The universe is not like the skin of an orange, but it could be very similar. Instead of a sphere, it could be a hypersphere, where 3D space is curled on itself.
Yep.
Which is impossible for your brain to visualize, unfortunately.
It is, yeah.
No borders, no outside of the hypersphere.
It would make a lot of sense, though.
Our whole 3D space is like the peel of the orange. If you were aboard a spaceship flying in a straight line, you would eventually come back to Earth. Mm-hmm. How does any of this make sense? The actual physics is hard, so we have to simplify and lie a bit here. But in a nutshell, it all boils down to gravity. The way it works is that mass creates gravity by bending space-time.
Mm-hmm.
This bending is the strongest where the mass is, but sort of stretches on forever, like a very mild tension in the fabric of space-time itself.
And that's also, I love how they admit that they're kind of lying a little bit to simplify things. That's something that Kurzgesagt does very, very well. They may tell untruths, they may oversimplify things, but the whole point of these videos is to make it accessible to people that don't have a doctorate degree in physics, or they don't have a degree in quantum entanglement, or quantum mechanics. Wow, brain fart. But they want to make it accessible so that way someone with barely any background knowledge can sit and actually enjoy the video, and it could pique your interest and get you curious to learn more. That's the point of a Kurzgesagt video, right? But that's also one thing. It's so hard to visualize gravity because they always use that kind of sheet reference where there's a sheet and gravity pulls down on the sheet. But what's so hard for us to visualize is that this is in a 3D space, right? So it's like an infinite amount of sheets, all at different angles, all getting pulled inward towards that thing that's creating the gravity. Yeah, simplification is good.
This could bend the whole universe in a way where it bends back on itself, which then makes the hypersphere. If you find this confusing, we're with you. If the universe happens to be
I'm
a
not
hypersphere,
alone.
how could we find out how big it is? On Earth, we can see things disappear below the horizon, and that helps us calculate how big the Earth is. Scientists tried to find some sort of universe horizon that would reveal the scale of the cosmic sphere, but didn't see anything. Which means that if the universe is a hypersphere, it needs to be so big that from our perspective, it looks like we're living on a flat surface. For this to make sense, a hyperspherical universe should be at least 1,000 times bigger than our observable part. It could be 1 trillion times bigger for all we know,
Is that it?
but not smaller than that. Some scientists thought all of this is way too straightforward and came up with a wilder option. The universe could be like the frosting of a donut. A hyperdonut, also
donuts
impossible to
are good.
visualize for your brain. This too means that if you travel in a straight line, you'd get back to where you started, but with fun complications. In a hyperdonut
Yes.
universe, there's not the same amount of stuff in every direction. If two spaceships fly in different directions, one could get back to the start way earlier. This also means that light from faraway galaxies would do fun and confusing stuff in a sort of cosmic Hall of Mirrors effect. We could see faraway things in two places, but not just that, we would see it in different moments in time. Because its light would have taken much longer to travel in one direction than the other.
That would be
You could see
crazy.
a star being born in front of you and see that same star die on the opposite side of the
I
sky.
wonder if that's what they
How
thought
big
when they
would such a
initially
hyperdonut
discovered
universe
gravitational
be?
lensing.
Well, because of its strange geometry, actually this is kind of the smallest possible universe, potentially just a few times bigger than the observable universe. But it could also be way, way bigger. We don't know. Okay, so much for finite universes. But what if it's truly infinite and space goes on forever? What would that be like? What
That's
if
an interesting
the universe
concept.
is truly infinite? Actually, the cosmological model used by most scientists describes an infinite universe. We mostly use it to calculate what happens inside our observable chunk, but if taken literally, it predicts an infinite universe.
And that's kind of what I was getting at before, is that we use that concept because it's good enough for our math, for what we're trying to do. But I truly do not believe that infinity exists in any actual physical way. It would take a lot of convincing in order for me to change my mind. And maybe it will be changed one day. Maybe someone will prove it to me. Or one of these videos will put forth good evidence that will make me start to question that. But for the time being, I truly believe that it's just not representative. For our intents and purposes, it's infinite. You know, we're never going to get to the edge. But it's not truly infinite in my mind.
An infinite universe goes on, well, forever, with no border anywhere. Also impossible to visualize. Wherever you look, you'll find more and more stuff in every possible direction. This kind of breaks our brain a bit for a few reasons. First of all, if the universe is infinite, is it also eternal and has been there forever? Was there a time when there was nothing everywhere, and then there was something everywhere?
It's sort of like the bubble universe
but
theory,
we have a lot
right?
of evidence for the Big Bang, so it really seems like the universe started at some point in the past.
And the bubble universe theory, I think it has a few other names as well, but that just theorizes that the Big Bang happened in a universe. It was a quantum fluctuation, and basically the Big Bang occurred inside of an existing universe, right? So there is something outside of our universe, and that's the old universe that was there. and is much bigger than our universe now, right? Because ours is younger. And we would assume that the same laws of physics apply everywhere equally. So that universe would be expanding too and would be many, many, many times larger than ours. And that could have happened before. So it could be universe within universe within universe, basically forever. But then that begs the question is, well, eventually there had to be the first Big Bang, right? Like, so what was there before that? Like, that doesn't necessarily solve the infinite problem or the eternal problem. It just prolongs that problem. And sometimes you hear people use that as an argument, but it's like, man, it doesn't fix it. It just prolongs it. It delays facing that problem.
But wait, since the Big Bang, the universe has been expanding. How can an infinite thing that's everywhere become even bigger? Cosmic expansion just means that the distance between galaxies is growing with time. Even an infinite space can become bigger. Welcome to the paradoxes of infinity.
There's different types of infinity too,
gets much
right?
weirder though.
We learned
As
about
you
those.
travel with your spaceship in a straight line, you find new galaxies, stars and planets, new wonders, new weird stuff, probably new aliens and new life forms stranger than you could ever imagine. But after a long time, you might find the most special thing in the universe. Yourself. An exact copy of you watching this video right now. How can that be? Well, everything in existence is made of a finite amount of different particles. And a finite number of different particles can only be combined in a finite number of ways.
Yeah, if you have infinite amount of chances, that means that every possibility, everything that could ever exist or ever happen, has and will an infinite amount of times. Mind-blowing, right?
That number may be so large that it feels like infinity to our brains, but it's not really. If you have finite options to build things, but infinite space that is full of things in all directions forever, then it makes sense that by pure chance, there will likely be repetition. Although just because something is possible doesn't mean it will actually happen. Maybe the universe goes on forever, but only the boring stuff repeats itself endlessly. Maybe there is really only one you. But if the laws of physics are the same everywhere, then far, far away, gas could have given birth to stars and planets where primitive genetic information could emerge from chemistry, which might have ended up in cells and animals that evolved in really unlikely ways, and eventually apes that learn how to create online videos. It happened at least once, so the chance is not zero.
Yep.
Even if the chance of there being an exact copy of you watching this video right now is almost zero is still a huge number in an infinite universe. Unfortunately, you'll never meet, because almost zero still means the chance is incredibly small. Earth, as it exists right now, is so unlikely you'd have to travel incredibly far to find a second identical Earth. Some 10 to the 10 to the 29, a 1 followed by 100 octillion zeros, times the size of the observable universe. So far that it kind of
don't even try to wrap your head around that.
Still, in a truly infinite universe, every combination of particles could reasonably not just occur only once, but an infinite number of times. So there actually might be an infinite amount of copies of yourself. All of them are living within their own observable universe. All of them looking at the sky, never able to ever interact with each other because all of you are so far apart.
Yep.
Maybe some of these versions made different decisions, fell in love with different people, took different forks in life. Maybe one of them has solved physics. Maybe another one is living your exact life, but is wearing a funny hat.
I need a funny hat. And see, this is a great thought experiment. I think that this is a wonderful thought experiment. But I also think that it's more psychology, or philosophy rather, not psychology. It's more philosophy than physics. Like I said, and I won't bang the drum anymore, but like I said, I think that an infinite universe is not representative of reality, an infinite anything. But infinity is a great concept, one that causes some problems. And I think that this is really cool to think about the possibilities if that were true, right? Like, obviously, everything that could ever happen would, an infinite amount of times. So, you winning the lottery, that 1 in a trillion chance of you winning the $1 billion jackpot, that's happened an infinite amount of times, right? If this is the case. Really great stuff to think about.
But if there are so many infinite copies of you, identical to you, who are you? Well, it doesn't matter, because you are as real beings get if you exist infinite times or if you exist once. It's time to stop now. While these scenarios are possible on paper, we've entered science philosophy here. Currently, none of these ideas are testable or provable. If the universe is infinite, we will never know. The reality is, for us, the universe is finite and has an edge. And we can see the edge in time.
Yep.
Everything we can interact with is within the observable universe, and most likely, this will stay true forever.
That's a beautiful thought, though. Think about that for just 1 second. Is the universe infinite? Well, ours isn't. Ours is not infinite because we are in the middle of our own observable universe. So everyone is the center of their own universe. That's poetic, really.
Even if this finite universe feels small to you, it's more than big enough to fulfill all the dreams that we and our descendants can ever come up with. Infinitely enough for all of us.
Huh.
While we can't be sure whether the universe...
Yeah, these guys always make you think. There's never a time that they don't. I love it so much. Very beautifully done. The art in this one was especially spectacular. They really knocked it out of the park here. I think I'm actually going to be grabbing my new desktop background from somewhere in this video. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great day. Take care now.